Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So this is Ashwin Mehta, and I'm an AI and technology specialist in the learning and human capital industry. And I'm joined today for the second time by Jacqui Woodall. Jacqui, welcome.
Hi Ashwin. Nice to be here again.
Great to have you back. So we were talking last time, and we were going to talk this time about AI in the legal sector. So last time we were talking about kind of the high-level approach that is very similar across, I would say, pretty much all sectors. And that is thinking about strategy, thinking about things like disruption and disruption to the industry, but also things like workforce displacement and how jobs might be affected by the implementation of AI across lots of different use cases. And that leads us to think about various aspects like culture, like change management. And last time we were touching on the idea of cultural inertia in organizations. So we have power structures and power hierarchies that maybe don't fully accept the disruption or they try and bottleneck the disruption. We have things like risk management, which by necessity need to slow down things like disruption and make sure that they're appropriately managed in terms of data and security and impacts and all of these things. But that leads us down a path where we start to think about change and we start to think about change management. And in the L&D space and in the human capital space, which is mainly where I guess I operate and you operate as well, we have seen this trajectory over the last year or so where we've had disruption to things like content production, disruption to things like platform implementations, license models, copyright, and all of these things have been slightly disrupted. And that causes conversation, but it also causes pilot programs to start and people to start to invest in exploring the area and thinking about experimentation, and new products come onto the market and everybody goes to test them out. So we have a SaaS landscape, which software as a service landscape, which is growing. So we have new capabilities and we have new capabilities in our technical infrastructure via companies like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, AWS. So we have this massive change. The market is changing, the technical environment is changing, people's skill sets are changing, and the tool sets that we have and the capabilities that we have, all of this basically leads to change. And change is, a big scary word. So when I think of change in an organizational setting, I always think of, well, change is something we need to manage. We need to think about it. We need to make sure that it's disruptive to the extent that we get results, but not so disruptive to the extent that we get the negative effects of that disruption across the workforce. So how have you seen change manifest in your work in the legal sector, and how have you seen change being managed effectively?
Okay, brilliant question. Thank you very much. Yeah, so just a reminder that my specialism is in change management for the legal sector, although I have an HR background. So that's just important to note that I'm coming at this very much from a human-centric behavioral change management specialism. And yes, this is something that's in desperate need within the legal sector, whether we talk about private practice law firms or sort of teams of general counsel legal teams within corporations and businesses. They're all being affected by all of these massive changes at the moment. So this is particularly relevant. And, we talked about all of these different changes. What is absolutely necessary is a change in mindset and a change in skill set around how people are led through all of these changes. It is the only constant. That's I don't want to be, just throwing it out there like such a cliche, but it is really the only constant. And so the trouble is the pace and the volume of change is such that people genuinely are overwhelmed. And so we have this situation where, it cannot be denied the level of change that's happening. Now what we're seeing is an increased impetus on actually hiring people like change managers. We're seeing an interest in multidisciplinary skill sets where people can really delve into, how can we make a meaningful impact on the structured way in which we move people towards a state of seeing these disruptions as potential opportunities rather than simply, this is something being done to me. And that's essentially the bit that I love. I love finding a way to turn disruption into opportunity and helping leaders do that. So I suppose your question was about good use cases. What does good look like? I will start by just talking about what good is in terms of the methodology. I'm ProSci certified. ProSci is the body of change management professionals who really, they're the largest body that does research on seeing what actually really works within big corporations in terms of good change management. And they have an approach which really you look at both organizational change management and you look at individual change management, or what it takes to shift an individual, and then look at it at a larger macro level. They need to be looked at differently, but the most important framework that I think ProSci go out there and talk to in the world is the ADKAR framework, which most of the law firms, most of the big four, everybody uses it as their kind of baseline level of, how are we doing good change management? And without wanting to just go through, all these acronyms and throw them out at people, I do think that the ADKAR framework is probably the one that most resonates with me as well, because it looks at the individual. What does it take to shift an individual from a place of fear and uncertainty to then moving them to a place where they're seeing an opportunity and can actually do something with the change that they're confronted with? So taking them from that state, they start with awareness, then move to desire. There's a lot of controversy about why we should use the word desire, because a lot of people are not going to get to a point of desire. They've sort of changed that, and they've taken it to moving them from awareness to then a commitment. So do I have a commitment? For whatever reason, have I made that shift to committing to what this thing means and how I'm going to play a part in it? Then, really truly having knowledge about what this change actually means. That's where the training starts, but the ability is then cemented by proper training and proper collaboration around what this change is actually going to be, and a sense of involvement in it. And then, of course, moving to the point of, and that's ability is usually when the go live happens. If we're talking about a technology implementation, it would be at that point of go live. You have to make sure that people have reached that state of ability. Then we move to reinforcement and what all of that amazing work around success stories and cementing, the fact that we're celebrating the wins, etc., and really tracking how people are actually adopting change. And there is new technology, AI-powered technology, that also looks at that at the moment now, which has really supercharged the way we can do that reinforcement bit. So I just want to, first of all, highlight what excellent change management from a structured change management perspective looks like. I have certainly seen that be used increasingly within law firms. What they're doing is they're taking various segmented stakeholders, really identifying what drives them, what motivates them, and what's in it for me as a particular type of stakeholder, and then chunking down these different buckets of people, and then understanding what is it that they need, what are the deliverables, what are the types of communication, what are the things that they need as interventions that are going to shift them across this whole set of stages. And I have seen that be professionalized and be dealt with on a much more structured basis with proper communication plans. Obviously, I've been the one doing it alongside these leaders. And I think the more emphasis is put on that sort of thinking, it is very helpful, because at the very least, when you hear people say, well, we're all individuals, you can't just be segmented and put into these groups, these buckets, we're not just, labels. Of course, they're not. But otherwise, what you get if you don't try and segment your audience and understand what the broad drivers are, you end up with a one-size-fits-all approach that really doesn't shift people as a large group, because we've all got such, personalized needs around how we want to be communicated with. So this ties in with a larger trend around personalization, which AI is helping us with massively. Everybody needs a more customized and personalized approach to the delivery of a user experience. And the same thing is happening in how we approach change management and how we try to communicate with people. We are having to personalize our statements and our interventions that help people along that journey. So I hope that answers your question. Broadly speaking, that was the kind of use case that was applied to almost every change that I've been doing.